Hello and welcome. I am Carissa with Cook with a Shoe, a personal finance blog where I share my story of becoming debt-free while paying cash for my husband's education. And I'm here to serve you by teaching you the value of living life on a shoestring budget by choice so that you can gain control of your money and reach your financial goals. We have a debt-free interview on the plans for today, and I have the privilege of speaking with my friend Megan from shapinguptobeamom.com. I met Megan when I attended the Blended conference, and in talking to her, I found out that she and her husband were debt-free. They had paid off their car, their student loans, and some credit cards. And since I'm always thinking about you, I asked Megan if she would join me for a debt-free interview and tell her story. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you came on to share us your story. I love hearing debt-free stories. And I wanted to ask you a few questions. Can you take me back to the moment when you first realized how much debt you had and that you needed to do something about it?
Well, let's say back in 2009, we bought our first house. And when we bought the house, we were out of debt because at that point we were living for free in an old house of his parents and working. We had no children at the time. So we were actually out of debt at one point. Well, I say out of debt, we still had a car payment. We still had some student loans, but we had no credit card debt basically. And then when we moved into that house, every penny that we had saved went toward the closing costs and then buying furniture and stuff. And then at that point, things started to build. And I think you don't just wake up one day and you have $20,000 on your credit card. So, I definitely knew that it was building up. And there's no secret there. But it wasn't until we hit, literally $20,000, we were like, okay, we are not paying this off. I think we were kind of fooling ourselves into thinking that we were taking care of it when we really weren't. And so at one point my husband was like, this is like a weight bearing down on us, and we need to get rid of it because as long as we're in debt, we don't have financial freedom.
And do you mind me asking, how much did you start with when you realized we need to get rid of this? How much debt altogether did you start with?
Well, it was about $20,000 on two different credit cards. We each had our own credit card. Mine was $18,000. His was like $2,000. And then we had a car payment. So we got kind of lucky because when we bought our van, we bought it from a family friend, so it was already like a good price. And then my husband's mom wrote us a check for the van, and so we were paying her back without any interest. So that was, really helpful. But we were paying it like a bill every month, $200 to her. And then we also had my student loans, which I had since graduating college in 2005. And we paid those off like a bill every month, $143 toward two different loans. And at the time that we started getting really serious about it, those loans started at $12,000. The student loans together were about $12,000 at the beginning. My guess is that by that point they were down to maybe $6,000. Maybe we were halfway through paying those off. And then the car was maybe down, maybe also about halfway paid off. So in total, probably close to $30,000.
That's a big wake-up call.
Yep.
What did you do at that point? How did you? So you've been paying these monthly bills, the 143, the 200, and how did you make any progress? What did you decide to do on that?
Well, a couple different things happened that were pretty major. So my husband is a teacher, and he taught for 6 years in one location. And after his second year, his salary got frozen. So the teachers weren't able to get any more raises at that point. And then after his 6th year of teaching, he took a new job, and we moved up to the Phoenix area. And he was able to come. So the school that he moved to, those teachers, their salaries were all frozen as well. But he was able to come in at a 5th-year teacher pay scale. So that was a significant raise. because even their base pay was larger than what he was getting at the other school. So he got a significant raise at that point, and all of that extra money went toward debt. And then the other thing that happened, things got worse before they got better, because when we moved that year, we had to leave our house behind that we had bought, and it wouldn't sell.
Oh no.
And yeah, and it was about 3 hours away. So we could have rented it. We just decided not to, because we were just kind of, you know, the more time that went by, we just hoped it's going to sell. It's going to sell. And it didn't. And so when we moved, it was a 2-week process. Like from finding out about the new job to getting the new job to moving was 2 weeks. And so we just packed up our house and drove 3 hours and rented a house. And so we put our house up on the market and it didn't sell. So for a period of time, for probably 6 months or so, we were paying our mortgage and we were paying rent on the new house that we moved into, because we were like, well, we wanted to do the right thing. So we just kept paying for it. And that meant before that, all of our extra money was going toward paying off that credit card debt. And we weren't being very good about not spending the extra money, and then, you know, rather than putting it on the credit card. But in theory, that's what we were doing. And when we moved and we were paying rent and a mortgage, there were no extra dollars at all. Like we paid the minimum payments on those credit cards. And I'm amazed that they didn't just skyrocket, but we were able to keep them pretty much where they were. So we were paying a minimum amount. They weren't increasing, they weren't decreasing. And then after when the new year started, I think the beginning of 2014, maybe 2013, I don't remember, one of those 2 years, we decided, or we found out, that if we wanted to pursue a short sale opportunity, we had to have not paid our mortgage. So we actually felt like, even though we were doing the right thing, we felt like we had wasted thousands of dollars doing the right thing, because we had to be at least 31 days overdue on our mortgage to even pursue a short sale. So at that point, we were kind of like, I guess we stopped paying. And we did. We just stopped paying on it. And we tried to pursue a short sale. The bank was very, very, very difficult to work with. I mean, I think anyone that has gone through that process is like, it's a nightmare, and it is a nightmare. And it sat there for, I think, about a year, and we had someone interested in pursuing a short sale. We were in talks with them, and then the bank foreclosed. So on one hand, it was a relief. I mean, nobody wants to go through a foreclosure. But we were like, you know, we gave it all we had. We did everything we could. And it's not like we couldn't, you know, it's because we moved. And it's not like we were living in the house. That it's not like it was getting foreclosed around us. We were already moved out of it, and it was just sitting there. So it was foreclosed on, and we were very lucky that at the very end of that year, the mortgage, I'm going to say this wrong, but the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act, or whatever it is, was renewed. In retrospect for the year. So we did not have to pay taxes on the forgiven amount. So we were really worried about that, because the IRS could have come back and been like, well, we forgave $100,000 on your house. That counts as income. Now you owe us $10,000 or whatever it would have been. So it basically was wiped clean. We got very lucky as far as that goes.
That's a huge blessing, and it probably helped with making progress on the rest of your debts.
Definitely.
I would imagine.
I mean, our mortgage was like $900. So, and our rent was a little bit cheaper than that. So we saved a little bit of money there. But after we'd gotten used to paying mortgage and rent, all of a sudden it was like, wow, now we have $900 a month that we can put toward this debt that we have. And we did. And that was probably the major thing that got it down pretty quickly.
So now, did you do anything else besides just put this extra money from the mortgage that you were no longer paying?
We did a couple of things. So my student loans, they have a forbearance process where you can choose to, or you can apply to have it just to kind of delay your payments for 6 months or a year or whatever. And we did that once when our second baby was born. Just because that kind of qualifies as one of their reasons to forbear your loan. So when our daughter was born, we did the 6 months, and we had 6 months of where we didn't have to pay it, and it just gets tacked on to the end. And the interest rate on those loans was very, very low. So, of course, the car was lower because there's no interest on that. But I mean, it was very, very low on those loans. So they weren't a huge priority to pay off right away. Obviously, credit card had major interest on it, so that was our priority. So we did forbear on that when she was born, and then we did it again when we got really serious about paying that credit card debt off. So we did a forbearance on that, and they granted that. Actually, I think they might have granted it for 8 or 9 months. So all of a sudden, there was another $150 that we had every month. And then we went to my husband's mom and said, hey, can we, take a 6-month break? Or it might even only been 3 or 4 months break on paying for the car. And of course, she's just like this really sweet old lady. And she goes, why don't we just forget the whole thing? And my husband's like, no, we're going to pay you for it. You're going to get every penny. We just want to take a little break so we can take care of the credit card debt. And she was like, sure. She wasn't even keeping track of how much money we gave her, but we were. So that's what we did. We stopped paying both of those things. So that gave us an extra $350 a month. And we actually were able to get it down pretty quickly. I mean, that's a major amount of money, but we were really able to get it down fast. I'd say in like a 12-month period. And one of the other things we did is we stuck to a budget like hardcore. And so at this point, we were a family of 5. We had our 3rd baby in 2013. So we have 3 kids and the 2 of us. And we started living on a budget very strictly of $150 a week. And I told my parents that. I said, yeah, our budget's $150 a week. And so my parents come back and they're like, oh, that's our budget too. $150 for me, $150 for your mom, $150 for eating out, $150 for groceries. And they're like, how do you live on just $150? And I said, well, we didn't eat out and we didn't do anything extra. And it was basically $50 for gas, $100 for groceries, or maybe $80 for groceries and $20 for driving through McDonald's or something one of the days of the week. And we just stuck to it really hardcore because part of the reason I got into that credit card debt was not budgeting closely enough and getting to the end of the week and saying, well, we have no groceries. I need to go do a $200 grocery run and just putting it on the credit card. And then, of course, I wouldn't make up for that on the following week. And so when you do that a bunch of times, that adds up. So we just stuck really, really closely to that budget, and every last penny went on the credit card. And yeah, that's pretty much how we did it.
Sticking to a budget definitely works. And it's amazing how much money you can find when you do have an extra. Well, when you're sticking to a budget and you have this much money to put towards your debt, and it adds up quickly.
Yeah, and I keep really close track of, well, and we're lucky too because I work part-time, and our checks are every other week, but they're on different schedules. So one week he gets a check, the other week I get a check, and back and forth. That's really nice. So we only have to budget 1 week at a time, but I do budget out, and I know exactly what bills are getting paid from which check. And our rent check comes from several different paychecks, and it's just I'm really well organized as far as that goes. And every check, the bills get paid, and then the $150 for the week, and actually since we've gotten out of debt, we've upped that to $170. We gave ourselves an extra $20 a week, and then everything that's extra goes into our savings account. At the time, it was going to paying off the debt, and then so we paid off the credit cards. And then we said, okay, let's build up our savings a little bit. So we built our savings up to about $2,000. And at that point in time, that's pretty much what we owed on the car. And so we took that money and we paid the car off. So we cleared out our savings, basically. And then we built it up again to about $2,000. And by that point, that's what was due on the student loans. So we took the $2,000 out and paid off the student loans. And that was when we were like, we don't owe anyone a penny in the world right now. And so then we've just started building up the savings again.
And how was that moment for you guys?
I told my husband, I said, this is the date that we're going to be out of debt. And I kind of like just moved, I kind of adjusted some money around a couple days before that. And so I sent him a screenshot of our credit card balance with the 0 like circled, and I wrote something on like exclamation points. And so he was thrilled. And it just makes such a huge difference, you know, from going to, basically you're paying for something that you already have when you're paying off debt. And then to going from that into now I'm paying for what I'm going to want in the future is huge.
And what are you saving for now that you're debt free? Or, well, before we get to that question, did you do anything besides up your weekly amount, $20, once you were debt free and you had the opportunity to actually spend something instead of putting everything towards debt?
Yeah. So a couple of things happened. So we got out of debt, and kind of at the same time, I started earning money from my blog. And I had never used any money from my blog to go to the family. It's just been my personal money, or I use it for the business of my blog. You know, I put it back into my blog. But that's been a couple of years now that I've been making money from that. And that's always just kind of been my money that I have in my, we've always shared accounts. We've always only ever had one checking, one savings, and we each had a credit card, but they were all linked to the same account online. And so all of a sudden I was making this money from blogging, and my husband teaches voice and piano lessons. And so at the same time, he started making money from that. So he has his own little stash, and I have my own little stash at the same time that like family money was working itself out. So now that helps in a couple of ways. Like we were already doing well with the family money. Now that we have our own stuff, I pretty much like buy my own clothes. I don't use family money to do that. So we kind of take care of our own stuff on our own. And so then, oh, you asked if we did anything else. So we ended up, once all those debts were paid off, it was like our monthly surplus that didn't have to go toward our budget or our bills just got bigger and bigger every month. It's like now we don't have a $200 car payment. Well, now our surplus is $600 instead of $400 or whatever it was. And now we don't have this other bill. So now it's this much, you know, larger. So a couple of things that we did is my son started 2nd grade this year. And last year he did a season of soccer that was like community $50 for the entire thing. And he didn't really like that. And he would play on the iPad all day if we let him. So at the beginning of 2nd grade, I said, you have to have something that you do. You need an activity. And I said, I don't care if it's piano lessons or if it's soccer. You got to do something if you want time also to be playing video games. And so he chose Taekwondo because we literally, like, our house backs up to a Taekwondo place. And we did a trial class, and then found out the actual amount that it costs. Actually kind of expensive. They do go twice a week, but it's about $100 a month on a contract. So it was, and we pay that. So it was really nice to have the freedom to say, you know what, we're adding now this $100 bill a month so that he can do an activity like that. And my daughter, who is 4.5, we pay for her to take a combined gymnastics and dance class, which comes out to, I think, maybe $75 a month. And it's just amazing to be able to have that freedom to do stuff like that for them, because that's important for them, I think.
And you're not stressing about it. I mean,
yeah,
it's part of the surplus money, and you have plenty that you're building into savings. And I mean, that's the point of paying off all your debt, so you can actually do something like that.
Yeah.
Now, what did you and your husband work together with paying off your debt?
Yeah, I do all the budgeting. But basically, it's always been every extra penny would go toward it. And the difference was when we really stuck to that $150 a week. Because before then, we'd say, well, any extra penny will go toward the debt. but then we weren't sticking to the 150 a week. So every extra penny would get less and less as we were like, well, we want to eat out tonight, or we need to pay for this, and maybe we didn't really need to pay for whatever it was. So once we started working together and deciding, you know, that means that every week there's probably going to be some kind of sacrifice we have to make to stay under that 150. So we definitely work together on that, but I do all the budgeting.
Well, usually it's one person who handles the number crunching, but to have the talks together and have the same goal probably is huge in your case to really help with your success.
And it was a good partnership because I do take care of the actual number crunching, and he's the one that was a little more adamant about, let's stick to this and let's get out of debt.
So even though you were a number cruncher, you were kind of like, oh, well,
I like to spend money. I like to go shopping. What can I say?
But that's great that now that you have your own little stash of income that you can do some of your fun shopping without hurting the family budget. And it sounds like you're still able to save a lot. Now, was there a point that it was really hard to stay motivated to keep paying everything off? And what did you do at that point?
I can't think of like one specific time. And I feel like the lower that our debt got, the more motivated we were, because when it's just stagnant like that and it's so much money, it is definitely hard to see an end in sight. But as you see that number going down, you're like, yes, we're doing this. This is possible. And this is within sight. That definitely gets you more motivated to do it.
Did you ever do anything with making your goals visual, or just seeing the numbers go down every month?
Yeah, I think it was just in the bank account. And he would ask for updates every once in a while, and I'm saying, this is where we're at. Yeah.
And did you like the approach of focusing on one debt and paying off that first and then saving up the money? How did that work for you?
I liked that because once something like, and the reality is we're going to have another car payment at some point in our life. In fact, right now I'm just crossing my fingers that the van lasts till the end of this year. And I mean, as the longer we can use it, the better, but it's old and it's got a lot of miles. And this is actually the first time I think that we finished paying a car off before we had to get a new one. And that's never fun when you still owe and you still have to buy a new car. So I know that money's going to come back. At some point, we're going to have to start up a car payment again when we get another car, unless we save up enough to just go buy the car, which is definitely a possibility. But yeah, I did like doing the save, totally take care of one thing, and then save again and totally take care of the next. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Now, tell me, what advice do you have for somebody who just woke up last week or this morning or something and realize they have a lot of debt and they haven't been managing their money well and overspending, and now they don't know what to do? They know they need to take care of it, but what would you tell them?
I would say to start with making a list of all your bills that you have to pay every month, and then estimate your living expenses, what you need for food and gas and whatever else you just need kind of on a day-to-day basis, and like be realistic about it, and try to make cuts where you can. Have spaghetti for dinner because that's a $2 dinner, as opposed to anything else really. You will have to make sacrifices, and planning ahead really when you have that budget and this is the number I have to stick to every week, because the bills pretty much don't change. Those are pretty straightforward. I mean, maybe you could look at what you're paying for and cut down a little bit here and there, but usually those are pretty standard and you're going to have to pay those. So then you have to say, where can I make other cuts on my living expenses? And am I telling myself I'm only spending a certain amount and I'm really spending more than that? Keeping track and planning ahead makes a major difference.
And sometimes with the budgeting, if you're just starting to, you don't have a clue how much you actually spend on groceries. So what you're saying about picking a realistic amount, you can pick a amount, say $100 a week, for example, and then you track your receipts. And if you're actually spending 125 because you do have a family of 5 or whatever, and you do need that money for food, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to buy steak for dinner, but you actually need that money, then you adjust it. You adjust your budget as needed.
Definitely. And something else that I did recently actually is I looked at our bills and I realized the only one that really fluctuated was our electric bill. And so they have an option where you can do like an estimated monthly payment. So instead of my bill being really high in the summer for air conditioning, they averaged it out, and then a little bit lower in the winter because I live in Arizona. It's steady all year long. And I think there's one check a month where they kind of balance it out. But so then it was just even easier to plan with that.
I love the budget billing with the electric. That helps so much, because I'd hate to, I have $300 this month, and you have to come up with that when you're used to paying $150 or something.
Yeah. It's nice on the other months when you're used to paying $150 and they're like, it's only $70. You're like, yes, spending money. But you owe it on the other side, so it's not really spending money.
Well, but at least it makes it more even, and it's easier for you to have your regular expenses that are a set amount, and then if anything extra, if you're paying off debt or if you're building your savings and you're working towards that, then you can throw that money towards that goal. Now, did it help you having a goal in mind to pay this off? Did that seem to help your motivation?
Yeah, definitely. It just makes a huge difference when you go from paying off debt to putting money away in savings. It's just huge.
Well, I am finished with all my questions. Do you have any last minute things you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much everything that we did and all the advice that I have.
Well, thank you so much, Megan. But first of all, before I finish thanking you, tell me, where can we find you?
Okay, so my blog is shapinguptobeamom.com. And that's where I write about basically anything that will help make mom's life a little easier. I write about family, fitness, travel, and homemaking, including recipes. Anything that's going to help mom to do something faster or easier or make life a little more fun. So that's what I write about over there. On Facebook, my Facebook page is facebook.com/shapinguptobeamom. And then I'm Shaping Up Megan on Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. So that's where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much, Megan. I was thrilled to find another person I could interview just from a brief conversation meeting you at the conference.
Yeah, and I think we should also mention that it was in the middle of an aquarium that we were chatting as the fish were swimming by. I was like, hey, I'm out of debt.
And that's the important thing. If you do have a blog, a little side note here, to open up that conversation and say what you do, because you never know what kind of connections you make, and if you can hire, or not hire someone, but connect with somebody to promote your blog and to just add value to your readers. So I really appreciate that with the fish swimming by. That was a lot of fun. And thank you so much. I enjoyed hearing your story, and I learned a lot. I love the idea of saving up for something and paying it off in one big chunk. That sounds like that would be such a relief off your shoulders. And I also wanted to thank all of you for joining me for another debt-free interview, where I showcase an inspiring story of somebody who has paid off all their debt, so that you can have hope that you can actually do the same thing. Megan and I both have paid off our debts, and it's possible. Like she was saying, just a little bit of hard work, some sacrifice, and sticking to a budget, plus having a goal, you can actually pay off your debt too. You can always find me at cookwithashoe.com, or you can follow me at cookwithashoe on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and Instagram. And of course, if you liked this interview, please subscribe to the Cook with a Shoe YouTube channel, where you will receive notice when a new video is posted. And also head over to cookwithashoe.com for the show notes with all of Megan's information and where to find her. Until next time, I'm Carissa, and I am here to serve you by showing you how to gain control of your money and reach your financial goals. Have a good day.